Right?
I kind of want one of those.
Yeah,
You need one of those.
I know. I totally need one of those.
yeah, that's the film major in me.
that's amazing.
I had to get one. All right. Welcome, everyone, to our season finale of Faith in the Real World. I am Matthew Teedy.
I'm Pastor Mark Teedy from St. John's. And I'm Pastor Mark Teedy from St. John's. And our very special guest today is Pastor Natalia Terfa.
Hello.
So today we're talking about the digital church. And I would say, when did the digital church first emerge, Natalia? What would you say was the genesis of that?
I mean, I think as soon as there were digital communities, like people gathering in whatever way online, so whether that's way back in the MySpace days or the early Blogger days, where people would create a community where they could interact with each other online, that is, to me, when digital ministry began. So I think it's obviously evolved a ton since the MySpace days, but I do think anytime a group can have a group chat or even in the AOL, this is dating me, I guess, but even in the AOL chat room days and those things where you could have a chat room that had a topic and you could have conversations with strangers across the internet, that is all digital ministry, all ministry in the digital space.
You have seen a church group on MySpace? Really?
I mean, you could make groups on MySpace, right? Like you could create groups.
That's before my time. So
I know. Before your time. I'm just an old lady, but I mean, I was doing youth ministry when MySpace was really big, and it was a way to connect with students for sure, in the pre-Facebook days. But to create a group and have people connect that way, and it was a way to get to know people in a way. Some people, not everybody. But there are a lot of digital spaces that feel safer to people than in-person spaces.
Oh, sure.
And so you could learn things about people and have conversations with people in a digital space, like on MySpace, or in a chat group, or on a instant messenger, or whatever these things were that you could never have in person, that they just wouldn't do it. Did you just break the microphone?
I did. Technical difficulty. This is part of being a part of that digital community, right? But would it be fair to say that one of the basic things about being a church, or being a community for that matter, it's about building relationships, right? You think it's a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. I think people are seeking belonging in any spaces. And I think the church is founded on belonging, right? Like that's a part of what we're doing, is building communities of people together. And so where people find that matters.
I'm trying.
Time
Pause.
out.
We're going to edit some of this out.
Game off.
All right. That's so funny. I did that.
In the first 3 minutes. It's just a skill.
Right.
Skill.
New rule when you swivel this, hold on to this with your hand for dear life.
Yeah, right?
All right.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Game on.
You were saying?
So the basic fundamental, one of the basic fundamentals of a church or community is about building a sense of building up those relationships, right? And we kind of talked about that just a second ago. And you were making a very good point I want to get back to, and that was that it's the church is built on a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Can you revisit that a little bit and say more?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially in the digital space, when you have often people who find themselves drawn into the digital space are people who have not found belonging in in-person spaces, right? So some of those early blog sites and those early Reddit sites and those early communities of people kind of gathering, even early Twitter. Like I met one of my closest pastor friends and podcast co-host Emmy on Twitter. We met on Twitter. We didn't meet each other in real life first. We met online first because we were interacting around the topic of Christianity in a progressive space, in a progressive way, on a space that was not progressive, right? Twitter was maybe a little more than it is now, but when pre-dumpster fire Twitter, I think we met there and you could engage and have conversations and threads around a topic of Christianity and belonging, and people felt, particularly the queer community, felt like they needed a space where they could connect and interact with other Christians who were thinking and wondering about the same things. They were in a space that felt safer than some in-person churches. So I think that's always been true. People are drawn. In early Christianity, they were, seeking each other out in basements and having secret codes because they wanted people to know, when we can't meet together, we can see the fish, right? Like, you can see these things that show us that you're safe, and you're a person we can have a conversation with, and you're a person we can interact with. And we're still doing that. We're still trying to find safe communities of people who aren't going to ostracize us for asking questions or wondering about this theology or wondering about this theology. And I just think that that's the foundation of why we are in the digital space. That's why we created these spaces for people to connect. If you only live in a tiny town in North Carolina and you meet a random Lutheran from Minnesota, like, your worldview changes, right?
Yeah.
And you interact with somebody across the globe, your worldview changes. And so you can, every time you expand your worldview, or you learn, oh, that person, God looks like this, but God looks like this to me, you expand your image of God. Like, that is always expanding. And that is the beauty of the digital space, is that it keeps expanding how people connect and who God is and how we experience God. And I think you get a fuller picture of who God is by the more different experiences other people have of God. So I love the digital space and seek it out on purpose.
Yeah. Well, and you've been at it for a while, right?
Yeah.
So when you started, what was it like? And now you're pretty successful at doing that. So you've been doing it for how long?
We've been going for a little while. We started in 2017.
Pre-pandemic.
Yes, pre-pandemic, maybe 2018. Oof, I can't really remember. It started with a conversation with a friend of mine who's an author and podcaster and all around awesome person, Nora McInerney. She's a local Minnesota personality.
Yeah. Sure.
Nora and I started the podcast together, and it started around a table kind of like this with somebody interviewing us together. We were friends who met on the internet. We did also meet on Twitter, I think. And she expressed curiosity about the pastor part in my bio. Like, she wanted to understand, she grew up Catholic, she grew up pretty conservative. She just was like, I have a lot of questions about this pastor thing. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so,
because you were a woman?
Yeah. Yep. Lady pastor, just and expressing pretty progressive views that she had never really heard before. And her first book was about the death of her first husband and her grief journey, and she wrote really honestly and bluntly about grief in a way that attracted a lot of people, including myself. And that sort of blunt speak was sort of what I was doing in the Christian space at that time. Like, I was saying, you can be a Christian and enjoy a cocktail, and you can be a Christian, which doesn't seem radical now, but it kind of was when earlier. You can be a Christian and swear sometimes, like some of those things that just felt like you weren't allowed to do. Some of these things, be a lady pastor, some of those pieces weren't as out there as they are now. I think it's probably more common than it is.
The taboo has waned.
Yeah, it has waned quite a bit. So she was asking me questions about progressive Christianity without realizing that's what she was asking me. Well, we didn't realize that was kind of a unintentional foil of each other's characters. Like, it was fun to sit around and her be like, so what does God say about this now? Like, even though she grew up Catholic, she just had so little understanding or theology baked in, and not to dig on Catholic, I also grew up Catholic, so I felt like I could sort of code switch a bit with her. But she just didn't have the language or the theology backing up the things she was taught. And so she would ask me questions and I would sort of talk about it, and we had such a good time. It was a little irreverent, a little funny. We had this Nora's Bible Corner section a long time ago where I would give her a Bible story and she would be like, "That's in there?" It was so fun to sort of, I don't know,
expose it to some of those things.
It was fun. It was really fun. And then early on in that process, we realized, two white ladies, straight white ladies, talking about Christianity that was shocking. That wasn't a space white ladies were really in at that point a lot, but especially the progressive space, there were a lot of conservative women, mommy bloggers, Christian mommy bloggers sort of space, but Nora and I were occupying a different area. And then, but we also realized like the questions people were asking us, they wanted us to talk about racial justice and they wanted us to talk about queer theology. And we were like, we are two straight white ladies. Like, we need to bring in other voices. So we invited Emmy Kegler, and she's a local Lutheran pastor, to be a part of conversations. And then Emmy just kind of became a regular co-host. And then we invited Jesse Ross, and he's a local DEI leader and speaker and awesome, all around awesome dude, to come in and talk a little bit about racial justice with us. And so it was Jesse, Nora moved to Arizona, and Jesse is way too busy to be regular, but Emmy and I have sort of held the space for a really long time, since probably mid-pandemic. So Nora moved during the pandemic to Arizona and stepped back from a lot of things during that time, which was also the podcast. But the podcast kept going and the community kept going.
How big is the community now?
Our weekly listenership is between 5,000 and 8,000 listeners a week, which is not huge, but it's not small.
Oh, it's more than the 4 people we have right now.
It's great. It's a great community. They are, I mean, it's a lot of people who are not finding what they need within their church community. Some people are not church attenders. Some people are church attenders, but are still needing something additional, or feel like they belong to the one church in their one town, and it is not progressive, but it is where they find community, but they're looking for something additional. So we've just kept on creating spaces. During the pandemic, we offered digital communion services, which I know is like, some people don't like that, but we did that for people. We offer book studies and Bible studies, and we do Sunday mini sermons on Sunday mornings on Instagram, and the podcast comes out usually on Mondays, depending on when our producer.
Shameless plug. Give us the name of the
it's called Cafeteria Christian.
Cafeteria Christian.
And the whole point of that, Nora named it. I remember we were at a bingo night at a brewery in Minneapolis together, and it was so fun. And she was like, I have the name for our podcast. She's like, we're going to call it Cafeteria Christian. Our original working title had been Not That Kind of Christian, because in that was, if you remember, 2017, 2018, that was when there was that big exodus from evangelical churches who had supported President Trump in his first term. That felt like people who said they had Christian values were following this person who was doing and saying things that were really not Christian.
Right.
So there was a lot, and that was when you really started having this, you felt like you had to caveat your Christianity by being like, I'm a Christian, but I'm not that kind of Christian.
I always say I'm a different flavor.
Yeah. You're just like trying to give a little, like, I promise I'm not one of those kinds of Christians. Right. And we could have still called it that, I suppose. But we really landed on Cafeteria Christian. Nora grew up Catholic, so Cafeteria Catholic was a thing she heard a lot growing up. This idea that you're not allowed to pick and choose parts of your faith. You have to like take it all. And so our tagline for the whole time a podcast has been take what you like and leave the rest. The whole thing is us trying to reclaim this thing that was used as an insult to people, to say like, no, you can actually, if it doesn't help you, or if it harms you, or if there's some book of the Bible that has always been used as a weapon, you can set it aside, and you do not have to.
Lutherans never talk about the book of James.
Yeah, like
right. We do it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for some people who felt like, oh, you got to believe all of it in order to believe any of it, and we were pushing against that, to say, no, actually, you can be here if you aren't sure what you believe. You can be here if you don't believe in the creation narrative. You can be here if you don't believe, like if you don't believe in hell. You can be here if you have questions about, we just tried to create lots of spaces for people to be curious, and that's sort of we talk about our like core values of curiosity and openness, and we just want people to feel like all the things that they had always been told were not okay, are okay. Like, we can at least talk about it. We don't have to. We might. I mean, we did an episode a long time ago with another clergy friend of ours, colleague of ours, Elle Dowd. And we call it was like a whole woo-woo stuff episode, like crystals and like, just stuff that people are like really freaked out by.
Right.
and
And
talking
maybe
about it
threatened, yeah.
and threatened by it. And Emmy did not enjoy it. She was like, I'm out. She's like, I do not want to be, I'm not, she had, and we just held both of those, right? Like, you can be uncomfortable with this and still, but we're not going to say, if you have a deck of oracle cards, you're going to hell. Like, we're not going to say that here. We're just going to wonder why that's powerful for one person and where it came from. Like, the spirit of that is very different than a hard line. But to say, like, why is it meaningful? Where did it originate?
Yeah.
Why did it stop being meaningful for some people? And why did it get labeled this thing for some people? All that is interesting to me to wonder. And when you start pulling on those threads, I mean, you learn that to me, if it helps somebody connect to God, whomever God is for people, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know. It's just a way to interact with the God. I just think, like, the divine around us. If you think that's God or the Holy Spirit or whatever you feel like that is, if there's a way you connect to that, I say, like, go for it.
Right.
Go for it.
Well, and the other thing is that you're maintaining the open door to keep the relationship going without knocking down the belief system that would sever the relationship, right? So you're keeping that open. You're supportive to the person, their faith systems, and at the same time, we also know that faith is not a static thing; it's a dynamic thing.
Yeah.
So where you are in your faith right now with your crystals, it may not be where you are 2 years later down the road because of the relationship that you've allowed to maintain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and to say, if somebody, especially, I mean, there's always been this idea, I think, that, like, you have to be inside it, especially happened in the pandemic. Mark, you know this because we've had this conversation. You've heard me get on my soapbox about this before, but like, oh, God left the building during the pandemic. So we all went home. We weren't in the building. We did this whole thing, and then the pandemic ended, and people came back to the building, but not everybody came back to the building. So then we started being like, well, it's actually better if you're in the building. But what you're sort of teaching people is that we were lying when we said God wasn't in the building, or were we lying? And so then the conversation we stopped having is like, where is God? And have we made God small by saying, like, God is only found in the church? I'm like, I can find God in the church. I love a sanctuary. Give me a beautiful sanctuary.
Yeah.
I'll sign me up, but also I will stand under a tree and
Absolutely.
also find God under a tree.
Right.
And there's not a hierarchy to where you can find God. And it just means to me, some people connect to God better with stained glass, and some people connect to God better under a tree. And that doesn't mean God is not present in one of those places, or more present in one of those places.
That's really a good point. Matthew's heard me say this before, but I have a friend from South Sudan. We were talking about church decline, and he calls me Mabiodit. He says, Mabiodit. He says, no. He says, you're wrong about the church declining, especially the Lutheran church. He says, in my country, it's exploding. Really, the only place that the Lutheran church is in decline is where you have big buildings. When we worship under a tree, we are growing.
Yeah.
And I was like, click.
Yeah.
There's something there.
There's something there.
Something about being inside of a building is sort of like being inside our box.
Yeah.
And we over time, we've become that shape. So if the box gets removed, we're going to just stay square.
Yeah.
And I think that Christ is really dynamic in the scriptures. And I think we've gotten kind of over German engineered, I think. And
again, like, I love a beautiful space.
Samesies.
Like, I think, but God didn't promise to show up in buildings. God promised to show up in sacraments. And so, like, where those happen is where God promises to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to me,
wherever 2 or 3 are gathered,
it
doesn't say wherever 2 or 3 are gathered or inside a sanctuary.
Yeah. It's like
wherever.
Yeah. So to me, it's that idea of when God promises to be somewhere, we have made that promise so small by saying it can only look like this one thing, right? We've just made that promise so much smaller than I think God ever intended it to be.
Yeah.
And if God wanted us to stay in the building, then God would have shown up in buildings more often, but God didn't show up in buildings that often. Like, God left the temple. God went out to the shepherds. Like,
flipped
God
tables over.
Like, it's like every time God shows up, it's in the wild, it's in the wilderness, it's in groups of people. It's, it's very seldom in a sanctuary. And so,
with the exception of the sacraments, we believe that, right? But the sacraments don't have to be only inside
in a building. Exactly. So to me, like, the beauty of a sacrament, I believe God is found everywhere. But when I feel like God is far, or I feel like God is quieter, or I feel like my relationship with God is more tenuous, or I'm struggling, I know I will experience God in communion and
Exactly
in
right.
baptism, right? So like God has promised to be here. So God doesn't need communion. I need communion,
Right.
right? God doesn't need
Yeah.
baptism. I need
That's it.
to have the day and time and place recorded where I was declared a child of God, because I forget it and I need it reminded. And so
Love that. That's right.
to me, that's the power
Boy,
of,
you're Lutheran.
I know I'm real Lutheran, but like you can be really Lutheran theologically and systemically less Lutheran, right? I'm less institutionally Lutheran and very theologically Lutheran.
Right.
And so that is not comfortable for people always. It's not, I'm not everybody's favorite Lutheran, that's for sure. but that when people think about, especially our podcast listeners, like we are hopefully showing them that the theology, not the church necessarily, right? We're showing them the
Yes.
theology and being like, this is why this matters, because we really need to hear this stuff right now. Like we really need to hear where God is and where God's promising to be and how God shows up and what that looks like.
I think
Really
we need
need
a
it.
new word, because I think when we're
Yeah.
our denomination is stuck on this word church.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, you go to Chicago and it open the doors and it says, welcome to the church, right? I mean, it's like, welcome to the ELCA.
Yeah.
No, we are ELCA right here, right now.
Yeah.
And then we have the synods, and this is the synod. No, it's the employees of the synod.
Yeah.
And we forget that the Gospels define that the church, the called out ones, the ecclesia, are the people. Has nothing to do with buildings or institutions, not anything.
Yeah,
So
we love organizing, so we need to like put things in happy boxes and listen.
That's what I mean by German engineered.
Yeah, I love a list. I love a checklist. Give me put things in order. I love it. I get it. I find it comforting as well. But that is, God was never meant to be engineered. Do you know, like
Right.
that just is doing God such a disservice to put God into manageable categories and boxes and systems and hierarchies and all these things that God is like, nah,
Absolutely. And my term of German engineering is a playoff of Mercedes-Benz. That's what that is. But we all these doctrines that do all these things. We had one moment. I don't know if you were on the call or not, but during pandemic, and our former bishop was trying to control use of sacrament online or not, and whatever. And then Carl Jacobson, my dear beloved friend, point of order, bishop. Article 14 in the Augsburg Confession says no one shall preach, teach, or preside at communion unless duly called. So just out of deep respect for you, it's not your call, bishop. That's mine as a pastor of my congregation.
Yeah.
What we do and how we do the sacraments, that's not your call. It's not Chicago's call.
Yeah, I know.
It is ours.
But boy, do they.
They really tried to control that.
And even recently, at the churchwide assembly, when our now outgoing presiding bishop said something about like, why aren't we doing ministry in digital spaces? And I was like, oh, she's doing it. I was so excited.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, but I have some feelings about that. She like undid it right as she did, she like gave it some air and then like sucked it right back. It was like the institutions just get so close because we love good order. And I get it. I also love good order.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like.
But you're finding a way. I mean, you've got this following, 5,000 to 8,000 viewers, right? That tune in and building community there. It's still good order.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there are people from all over the world, presumably.
Yeah. And we're not a church. So, then it's like, how do you categorize them or how do you find who they are? How do you know who your members are? Like this is what we try to do right away. And you just look at early church and they were just like, people just kept on joining. And do you think they always counted and could know everybody who was there? And like, I just went, no, we'll just keep doing the thing. I just think if you keep preaching the gospel and showing up where people are, like you are doing good work. I think that's enough. I just don't think we need to categorize it all the time.
I agree.
I get it. I get why.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I mean, you've got a point there where you can just say, well, this is what we're doing. What do you want to call it?
Yeah.
They'll name it. And I think what you're doing in just fostering these digital relationships, I think it's really playful. I think it's fun. I don't think God is displeased.
Yeah.
I don't.
I think to me, I've always used the two images. We've held these two images of like we're we're either building tents or bridges, right? Like there are people who are never going back into the building. They're just never walking back. They've had too much harm. They've had, there's too many things that have gone wrong. They asked one too many questions. They were told they're not welcome, whatever
Right.
reason, right?
Yep.
So we're going to create a tent of meeting, right? This is very biblical. It's very from our history. The tent of meeting, a place we set up, and God meets us there, right?
Right.
And so we're just going to set up tents and hope people come and hang out in them, and that's what we do on this podcast. And then we also build bridges. Like we're encouraging people to stay tethered to a faith community.
Sure.
We help people find churches all the time. We, tell people what it looks like to, how to find a church at Christmas is one of our most common questions at Christmas time. People will say like, "I'm maybe interested in dipping my toe back into a building. How do I find a safe place?" And we help people seek out churches. That's a
stuff.
bridge,
That is.
and this to me is like, if they never go back, that's okay. But if they want to ask a question about going back to a building, they need to have a place they can ask it.
Exactly right.
And so you can't just be like, you don't count, poo poo, and you're gone, which is sort of what we've been told regularly. Like the ministry you're doing is like, it's fine, but it's like it's not as important as this.
Right.
And
It's less than, right?
yeah, that it's somehow less than because it doesn't look this one way. And I just make the argument over and over again that it really matters. It really matters that people have a tether to good theology. The internet is so loud and there's so much bad stuff out there. And to have good theology and good theologians in that space really matters. I didn't get my ordination certificate at the Universal Life Church. No offense if any of you got that, but I got ordained legit. I'm a legit ordained pastor with education and theology to back me up. And I'm not just some internet pastor who decided I'm going to call myself a pastor and now that's what I am.
This is so important.
It
You hear this,
matters.
folks, because not only is she a legit pastor, she was a legit candidate for our bishop. That's a true story, and you
Oof.
need to know that. No, that's going to segue to a question that I wanted to ask you. I've been thinking about this.
Oh,
So go back a year ago when you and I were in that process, and she went way farther than I did. So you're in that process, and you do get elected to bishop. What changes in your online ministry? When now, you've got the hat to match, right? You've got the bishop role.
yeah.
How do you do that? And then what would you do? What would you have changed in our synod?
It's so funny. I've joked so many times that it's great that I'm not bishop.
Same.
I'm really grateful that I was able to go as far as I did and then not get elected. To me means that I got to say a lot of things in a very big platform that needed to be said. And that, I kind of joked that I was like the Bernie Sanders, where I was like,
Love that.
you just stir the pot enough that you move the agenda, right?
You move the line. That's
you
right.
move the line. And
Yeah.
that's what I didn't, I was prepared to be elected. You can't say yes to that process and not
Right.
wonder if it's a possibility. So you
Exactly.
have to be prepared.
So in your little mind, your
Yeah.
big mind, but in that little spot.
I'd have burned a lot of stuff down. I think it would have been really hard. I think it would have been really hard for people. I think the bishop we got is pushing just enough that it's not that she's doing really good work and it's not freaking people out. I think I would have freaked a lot of people out. But I also I think if I'd have been elected, the podcast would have been I don't know if I could have done both. I'm not sure I could have done both. I think it takes time and energy and resources that I just don't know if I would have been able to maintain.
You might have, the other people you're with might have maintained it, and then you'd be like a guest person coming in, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's tough too because I don't have a lot of institutional loyalty. I don't
Right.
have a lot of loyalty to the ELC, so it's super ironic that I was in the bishop process.
That makes two of us, by the way.
So to me, that what would make me nervous about that position was that I don't want to be speaking for the whole institution, right?
But you would have had to.
but you would have had to. So that's
So-
where that line on the podcast
Yeah.
would be tougher, I think. For me, I don't ever feel like I'm speaking on behalf of the institution even when I'm wearing my little pastor hat. Like
Right.
I'm not that connected to it, and I don't mind pushing it and being.
Mhm.
I mean, I enjoy stirring the pot. That's a position I enjoy being in, so I don't mind that I got to push the envelope as far as I did, and then not have to have the weight of that role. I'm like very grateful for
Yeah.
that. And I think the whole time, I mean, not the whole time, but for most of the time, I could do math and knew the numbers weren't there for me. Like you could see it pretty early on what the math was, and that was freedom. I think
Yeah.
to say harder things and less careful things because the person who was going to get elected was the one that needed to be more careful, and I felt like that was a lot of freedom for me to say harder things, which is a position I enjoy being in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a lovely way of saying what you've said. I really think that's really smart. It's calculated.
And part of that was about digital ministry, right?
Of course
like
it was.
I
Of
pushed
course
it
it was.
so much from that stage, from that platform, and now it is a part of the bishop's agenda. Like it is on her radar
Yeah.
in a way that it was not before,
Well, it was denied before.
and denied many times.
right? It was
before.
like illegitimized. No sacraments. It's not church. It's something else. No,
yeah,
dumb,
yeah.
short-sighted, not understanding how people are using the internet.
Yeah,
I mean-
and if we had gotten a green light from our bishop, the previous bishop, when we were starting, we met with her well before the pandemic. But just think if we had been given resources pre-pandemic,
Oh,
what
man.
we could have become and
Yeah.
what it could have done, and instead we were throttled quite a bit, which
Yeah.
is such a bummer, right? You really feel like it was a missed opportunity on a larger scale.
Sure.
Over the whole ELCA, right? Like there could have been some real ministry done in that way that we just didn't get to do, which is a bummer. But
It is a really important point because I get some very, very little pushback about we're still on YouTube and whatever, and people are saying, well, we should stop broadcasting so that people come. And the reality is they don't.
yeah,
If we stop broadcasting, those people won't hear our perspective of the gospel. They just
Yes.
won't hear it. And
yeah.
we're,
The question, people always think it's they'll come if they don't have the other option. You're like, no, their other option is not coming. Their other option is they'll hear it online, or they will not hear it. Like
That's right.
those are the two options. You think the option is they'll hear it in person or hear it online, but those are not the choices. That
Right.
is
No.
not the choice.
Not to mention some people aren't even in Minnesota, so
Right.
what do you expect to move? So,
Yeah, exactly.
We have a film from North Carolina, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And,
Yeah, and
and
these are-
Spain for a while.
And these
didn't
are
we?
people
Yeah.
who have connections to your community or other people they know or you or whatever. And like that is okay. Like for them to or somebody who was here and moved or whatever that is, you want people to have an opportunity to stay engaged in a local community, even though they're not local. Like that
That's right.
is really important, beautiful work because you don't know what the ripple of that, like who are you to decide how the Holy Spirit uses what you say in another space? Like who are you to determine that? Like the Holy Spirit gets to be like, someone in North Dakota listened to your sermon and was like, thank God Pastor Mark said this because no one here did, right?
right, exactly.
Like I had a friend who was in South Dakota when the shootings of the Horsemans and Hoffmans happened here in Minnesota.
Jeepers.
And she went to her local ELCA Lutheran church in her small town in South Dakota that Sunday and just prayed they would say anything, and they didn't. And she was so mad and just devastated to be like, I just needed, and she's from here, so it felt closer
Yeah.
than it was in South Dakota. But she's like, I needed someone to say it, and I didn't have anybody say it, and it was devastating. And that was, guess what? The last time she went to that church. So like, to keep a tether, even if it's digital, with somebody to say, I needed to hear somebody acknowledge this hard thing because my church is not going to, that is enough. And the Holy Spirit can do a lot with a little, And
I could not agree with you more on that. It's so important. We got an email from a woman in Florida who was going through a really horrible moment in her life. She didn't go into any details with it whatsoever, but she said it was a really horrible time in her life and she just needed to hear a word of hope that supported her and her friend. While they have recently relocated to Florida, they are looking for an ELCA congregation that isn't solidly in support of President Trump.
Yeah.
And I needed help. And we looked online, and there you were. And she said, "You were such a blessing." And I wrote back and I said, "I'm so glad you mentioned this, because South Carolina or North Carolina couple mentioned the same thing. And if there's anything we can do, if we can if you need prayers, here's my cell or my church phone number. Please call me sometime."
Yeah.
Sent the email. 20 minutes later, I got a phone call.
Yeah. I mean,
It's connection. It was just the neatest thing.
and maybe they had never made that phone call, right? Like maybe but a year later they needed a pastor and they had your phone number still, right? Like,
Right.
Like it just is, to me, it's like you're building just a tether to a local pastor that matters. And if somebody in Kansas or Missouri thinks I'm their pastor, great. Like
Yeah, that'd be terrible.
I'm
right?
just like, okay, I don't understand how that's a threat to somebody else. Like there are,
I don't think it is a threat to somebody else.
Yeah,
I think it's
you
a
know what I
lack
mean?
of that other person's. They don't understand.
yeah. And I've said that too, where, to me, when somebody's like, you can't have real community online, all that says to me is that you've never experienced
Right.
a community online.
That's a really good point.
Which just makes me sad, because there are digital communities that are awesome. But
Mhm.
if you haven't needed it, what a privilege. And if you have experienced it, it's real, and the connections you make online are real, and the belonging you experience online is real. It's not less than because you're not. Now, there is something, I think there are two kinds of community, right? The digital community is different. It's not the same as being together in person. I don't want to be like, it's exactly the same. It's not. There is something powerful about being physically in the same space at the same time.
Yeah.
But there
That's
is
true.
also something really powerful about gathering with people from all around the world, all around the country, all around your state, that are wondering the same things about you or believing the same things about you. That is equally powerful. And it's different, but it is not less.
So
And
you're not of the opinion then that the online community will one day replace the in-person community?
no, because I think there is a part of us that longs for in-person community. I mean, I just think, but you can do, I mean, think about, I think think of a Venn diagram of in-person community and digital community, and there might be a tiny bit of overlap, but there's probably not a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's okay. Like, that's fine. Who do you need to interact with today? Do you need to go to this digital community and get support? Great. Do you need to go over here to this in-person community and get support? Great. Or community. Like, it just depends on how you're feeling and what you need that day. And like, you get different things from different communities, and that's fine. I mean, no one person is ever meant to be everything to everybody.
No.
And so like, we can do this with the church as well. Like we can a la carte church a little bit, like a cafeteria tray, hypothetically, which is the image of my podcast. So I'm just saying, like, you can take what you like,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
and like leave things when you don't need them and pick them up when you do, and that's a part of it.
Yeah, so from my own perspective, I run all the marketing and video stuff here. So to me, it feels like the ELCA specifically is just getting into the digital realm. Like it's just slowly getting into it, and they have a history of being terrified of marketing themselves online or in general. So how do we cater this and show them not only do you have to do this now in this day and age, but it's okay to do it. It's not harmful, it's not dangerous, and it's beneficial to the church. How do we show them the positive side to it?
I mean, I think part of it is to say, like, how much time do adults, don't even take kids, don't even take teenagers into the equation. Just say like adults 18 and over spend online a day. Like, just think about that. Like, everybody pick up your iPhone right now and look at your usage. Like, oh, buddies, like, how much time are you spending in digital spaces, in digital platforms, on social media platforms? Like, think about that. And then how much time do you spend at church? And like, buddy, we're so far down the list. We got to be where people are. Like, that's the whole thing. So like, be online. There are lots of theologians already there, and their theology is bad. It's bad. And like, I know we've already joked about me being very Lutheran, but like, our theology is good and it has something to say to this particular time and
Now
place.
you're preaching my language.
Yeah, and like we need to say it. We can't just give up this space where people spend a huge portion of their day to the worst theologians. Like they're
Right.
out there saying really bad stuff. I don't know what your
Horrible stuff.
explicit. I was about to swear there, but like I don't know what your explicit rating is. I don't want to swear for your people, but I'll just say like
Let us show you.
there's really bad theology out there, and it's doing a lot of damage to people when we think that's the only kind of Christianity there is.
After the shooting at Annunciation,
Yeah.
which that was way too close to home for me.
Yeah.
After that shooting, there were things that I saw online. I just could not believe that these trained pastors were willing to say. The murder of Charlie Kirk yesterday. Same people, same drivel that comes out of their mouth in the name of Jesus.
Yeah,
it's so bad.
It's so
There
bad.
has to be. Or let's say it this way. Since God has given us a counter theology, a counterpoint to them, I believe we are called to be where they are.
Yes, absolutely.
And refute those horrible theological statements that are
Yes.
very damaging.
Yes.
I mean, it's just toxic.
That's why when somebody starts a podcast, people are like, how do you feel about that? And I was like, great, we need more progressive podcasts in this space that is so conservative. Like, we just need good progressive theology out there giving people another. If somebody's curious about Christianity and you just type it in on TikTok or YouTube, you get some
wackos.
You get some bad stuff.
Yep.
And so, like, I just think there is nothing wrong with flooding the zone with better theology, and I just wish we would do more.
And it's fun to do.
And it's more fun too. Yes.
Look, we've talked 42 minutes on this. Well, we're going to edit some of that out. So, this has been so good, and watching you ramp up with your own excitement.
I'm passionate about this.
You are
for
passionate
sure.
about this, and it shows, and it's one of the reasons I'm sure that you have so many people that are tuning into your podcast and your community. Is because of the passion that you care for them. And people ask, will you pray for me? And you say, oh, no, we're a digital community.
Yeah, we don't do that here.
Yeah, right, it's still stupid.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm still a pastor. I'm still able to be a pastor and to pastor people in the digital space.
I also think the fact that you're a woman that's ordained to be just that, you're countercultural.
Yeah.
Online.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
it's just a cool deal. It just is such a neat thing. And we thank you. Really, thank you very much for being here and sharing your stories and your passions with us. Can't say enough. Thank you. Cafeteria Christian, that's the thing. Go check them out. And where is it?
It's on all the Apple Podcasts, of course, but then on all the things. You can find it on all the things. And then cafeteriachristian.club is our website, and we're at Cafeteria Christian on Instagram as well. If you want to go there.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be sure to add those handles. Yeah.
It's not hard to find. Just at Cafeteria Christian on all the things, I think. So it's pretty easy to find.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you all for watching. This has been a fun revamp of Faith in the Real World.
It has been really fun. We're launching soon.
Woohoo!
Yeah, launching soon. Hopefully, in early 2026. That's the goal. So So thank you all for watching. See you next year.
Bye.